I'm talking to Tom Evans, who's a long-standing friend of mine. I've known Tom for a number of years now, and we've always promised ourselves that we would do wonderful things and work together, and I'm really delighted to welcome you here, Tom.
It's great to be here.
Now, Tom is an author here today to talk about a book and an idea, and much more than that, called The Art and Science of Lightbulb Moments. Now, we all know about lightbulb moments, that time when something goes off, not only in our head, but often in our whole body, and tells us that we're really onto something, that this is something we want to pursue, that excites us. And so, Tom, The Art and Science of Lightbulb Moments, what was it that inspired you? What was your lightbulb moment that inspired you to write the book?
Yeah, well, we all have one as authors. We always have something that's, that gets us to be a non-author. And what inspired me was pretty much that I've always had lightbulb moments all my life. And I had a lightbulb moment that, wouldn't it be nice to research lightbulb moments themselves? So I started to look into the phrase and where it came from. I started to research Edison's biography, and I found out that Edison, ironically, didn't have a lightbulb moment when he didn't invent the light bulb, but he did a lot more than that, which is actually the science part of the book. And so I started to find out that there's certain conditions that we get ourselves into where we can have them. So people report that say they have them in the shower, when you're doing something like the ironing, or doing something against the sort of stream of consciousness, if you like, where the idea comes in. And so we get this idea that they come in at random. And what I found out by studying the conditions by which they come in, how you can actually have them on demand. So if you've got a situation, let's say in a business or something like where you'd like some good ideas, then all you've got to do is get into that state and the ideas just flow in.
That's really fascinating. And how do you know? I mean, how do you know when you've had a genuine lightbulb moment? How do you personally know?
Well, one of the things about them is that they seem to come in less than a second. So they seem to happen outside of time. And you get the whole picture in one go. And when you get it, you get excited. If you get one in the middle of the night, you can't get back to sleep and you've got to wake up and write it all down. So it's the nature of the idea. But one of the main features of a lightbulb moment is it comes against your thought stream, you know, your internal chatter. So you can have an internal conversation or rehearsing a speech or thinking about what you said the day before or something like that, and they come in against that grain. So it's almost like they've got a different signature inside your head.
And can people really have lightbulb moments on demand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what I've been teaching people. As part of the research, I thought, well, I better go and find out about this. So before I wrote the book, I ran a series of workshops. And I thought I'll get some people of different persuasions, some cynical people, some people that sort of believe in it, and I'll try out these theories on them to see whether they work. Because there's no point writing a book if I've not tried it out in practice. And one of the aspects of lightbulb moments, and ideas in general, and I'm sure you've come across people that do this, they have great ideas, don't do anything with them, and then 2 years later they get annoyed when they say, that was my idea, and I thought of that first, and someone else seems to have done it. And so it turned out to me there's another aspect of the lightbulb moment, which is the science bit of the book, is how you ground it so that no one else steals it and your idea comes into fruition.
And is it a different experience do different types of people have different sensations when they're having lightbulb moments?
Yeah, and what's happened since I've started to do the workshops and work with people on a one-to-one basis, I've noticed that people get them in different ways. So some people might get a vision, some people might hear a voice, some people might feel it in their gut or feel it in their water, some people might feel it in their heart, and people get them in loads of different ways, and some people seem to respond to water. You know, they're in the shower and they get a lightbulb moment. Some people seem to respond to adversity and danger. You know, so maybe they're more of the fire element as opposed to the water element. And people respond in different ways and get them in different scenarios. And I think that depending on how we're wired, we might get them in all sorts of different ways. But there's one common theme, which is very, very obvious, and that's that they're called inspirations. And inspiration is half of the respiration process.
the respiration process, or in other words, breathing and the breath, is that a very important factor in generating light bulb moments on demand?
Yeah, well, it's important for two reasons. One, if you're not breathing, you're not going to have many ideas. So number one, right, so you kind of need to breathe. But yeah, most people don't even realise this, but you know that we always speak on an out-breath. If you try and speak on an in-breath, you'll see how difficult it is to do. And I had a light bulb moment that perhaps on the inspiration is when the ideas come in, so then we can vociferate them on the out-breath. And when you get in tune with that, and there's certain breathing techniques I teach, there's a couple of audio recordings that are going to go with the book, and I teach them on the workshops. By breathing in a certain way, you can actually breathe the ideas in much easier. And that's involves a circular breath, and it also involves a breath with alternate nostrils, funny enough.
What are some examples of light bulb moments that people have shared with you or come up with on your workshops, or even of your own, in your own experience?
Well, the sort of things that people come up with are, I've had people that come up with ideas for books. They come up with the title for a book or the first line, and just armed with that one little sentence, you just can't stop them writing. Off they jolly well go. Other people have had an idea for a business, or more specifically, they've had a general idea of where their business wants to go. And then they realise if they slightly adjust their business, they can go into a completely different niche, which is open territory for them. So it's not so much the idea, it's the application of the idea. And what's important about light bulb moments is that they're not just the domain of the inventor. They're actually applicable in every point in product and service delivery. So you can have a light bulb moment about customer service. You can have a light bulb moment about how you produce something. You can have a light bulb moment about how you generate a spin-off idea. You can have a light bulb moment about how you do merger and acquisitions with a company, or how you franchise something or whatever. So it's not just the genesis of the idea, it's every point of the process.
So it sounds like it's a very active process, and we talked a couple of minutes ago about how important it is not only to have ideas but actually to put them into action. And so the people in your workshops who get an idea for a book title or something to do in their business, it sounds to me as if they're off immediately, and there's not that gap between, oh, I've had this idea, and as you said, you sit on it for 2 years and don't do anything and then get cross because someone else has done it. But what you're doing is actually helping people to get into action immediately, so they get real results. Yeah,
but through a series of through a process. So you have the idea. I've come up with the acronym, which is not that difficult and not that much of a light bulb moment, which is IDEA, which is idea, and the acronym is simple: have the inspiration, then dream all the possible things that you might be able to do with it, then evaluate each of the options, and then take action. And if you miss any of those steps out, you might just miss a brilliant, brilliant opportunity.
And why do you think light bulb moments are an important factor in people's lives?
You know what? Because they're easy. They're free, right? You can struggle all your life and never get somewhere, or in less than a second you can have the most brilliant idea that can change your world, your family's world, your business's world, or the world in general. So why wouldn't you want one?
Indeed, why wouldn't you? And do you envisage light bulb moments creating change in the world generally on a global level? Yeah,
well, there's a bit of a flip side to light bulb moments, because if you then study the opposite frame of mind you're in when you don't have light bulb moments, you're basically having an internal tussle. You might be in two minds with something. You might be gossiping at work. You might be angry. You might be fearful. You might be running all of these thought processes. And in our minds, in the same way you can't speak on an in-breath, the current way that human beings are wired is you can't have two thoughts at the same time. So if you're running thoughts like fear and anger and gossip and all that sort of stuff, and negative thoughts, while you're running those thoughts you can't have positive thoughts. So why wouldn't you want to have really, really good thoughts all the time? And if you're in business nowadays, when everything's getting increasingly competitive, why not have brilliant thoughts to get ahead of your competitors? And why not have them really, really easily?
So what you're doing is helping people take advantage of what might be described as a crisis, and turning it in, as the Chinese do, turning a crisis into something that's an opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many people out there that have been made redundant, and through that redundancy they have a bright idea and then they go and change their life as a result of it. So turning adversity into opportunity is such a marvellous thing to do.
Indeed, and I think it's a wonderful idea that most people should have light bulb moments and be able to take them and use them to better their own lives, those of their families and everyone around them. So thank you, Tom. It's been really illuminating and great to see you today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.